Hello, everyone. Mike Doloff, Chief Revenue Officer, Inflow Communications. I have with me our President and CEO, Travis Dillard. Travis, say hi.
Hello, everybody.
Travis, we did a video a couple months ago talking about the state of UCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service, in 2019. I've been wrestling with the topic of doing one for contact center as a service, or really contact center even more broadly, in 2019, and it's taken us a while to get to this point, but that's what we're going to talk about today. What's the state of the contact center technology space in 2019 as we wrap up this year? So putting together a little graphic that will show out now and really talk through. I think this is a really tough topic to kind of visualize. I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of moving pieces and parts, but we put something together here that we're going to show out and talk through and break down for everybody. So, all right, we're going to start the sharing here. Okay, so we put together a little graphic that you can see that Travis and I are going to walk through. So really in the contact center technology landscape, you've got people coming at this from different angles. We certainly have companies that have grown up in the last number of decades putting together premise-based contact center technologies and solutions. The Cisco's, Aspects, Genesys, Enghouses. There's many in this group, right? These were all the household names everybody knew and only knew, right, up until a couple of years ago, really.
Well, it's still our household names in that they have massive customer bases right now. So that's an attribute of these legacy on-site players. Is you talk about the Genesys and the Avayas of the world. Millions of endpoints.
Absolutely.
Space contact centers.
And obviously, this is sort of their pedigree, where they're coming from. All of these companies have a cloud, story or angle that they're working right now, right? So part of this is just showing this is where they're coming from. Do they have a cloud play? Yeah, some of them have multiple and different ones. So we'll talk about and highlight Genesys in just a minute. They have kind of a unique kind of place that they're at between legacy and really challenging in the cloud. But that's I think everyone's pretty familiar with a lot of those names. Won't spend a lot of time there, but that's certainly a very relevant part of the contact center technology landscape today.
Costly, very generally more expensive. A lot of pro service heavy, complex.
Generally less open, generally more required from kind of a lifting of configuring, making changes, et cetera, right? Generally speaking, right? Some of the themes in there for sure.
And you still see a lot of players staying on-prem for other maybe regulatory needs like HIPAA and PCI compliancy, and that's what held a lot of your enterprise customers back to on-prem. Now we're seeing that change as those regulatory concerns are being met in the cloud.
Yep. So I think one of the interesting things is we've kind of broken up the rest of the landscape here into a couple different areas. We'll touch on all of them briefly and then dive into them. So we've got cloud incumbents, cloud challengers, and CRM and ticketing. How are these all in the contact center space? Well, we'll talk about that, but let's hit the cloud incumbents. The reality is cloud contact center technology is, of course, where things are going, where all the energy and effort is largely being placed today, as it is with most of the tech landscape. But what's interesting is this market's matured enough in the last couple of years where there's really sort of the incumbents of cloud, right, that came to market as cloud only. They don't have a prem system, but they sort of are the incumbents now. Those would be the inContacts, the 5.9s, 8x8s. They've been doing this for a while and doing it successfully, but there's sort of a divide, if you will, a difference between these folks in the early phases of cloud and have been maturing with it and growing and doing very well. But then there's sort of a newer group, the cloud challengers, I would say. And the difference here is really cloud challengers built architecturally. Well, actually, I won't steal this, Travis. Why don't you talk about the cloud challenger? I mean, this is a fun topic. I don't want to steal all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a great way to describe what's unique about the cloud challengers is comparing them to the incumbents, right? I mean, in my mind, incumbents have been around in some cases over a decade. Maybe
well over in some cases.
Yeah, well over. Yeah. More proprietary data center focused, proprietary data center, proprietary software, more closed like premise. They're basically premises instances in the cloud. They might not tell you that, but that's generally what we're seeing. More complex, more costly, pro services heavy. There's just technology debt around these types of players where the cloud challengers come in. Their cloud 1.0 story is in the public cloud built on a microservices code base, and they are generally a lot more open when it comes to APIs and integrating with third-party ecosystem players. So they kind of leapfrog, in my mind, they leapfrog the incumbents just by the way they're built. They're more nimble. It's less costly for them to enhance and differentiate their product than it is the cloud incumbents. Cloud challengers are giving customers a lot more options when it comes to what they want to integrate with those challenger platforms. What conversation analytics do you want to use? That's up to you. Snap it in. There's an API. What sort of AI tool do you want to use? How do you want to snap it into CRM? What's the omni-channel strategy? Whereas the incumbents, I think, are, in my mind, a lot of those incumbents, they innovated through acquisition and bolted on. Kind of like the Cisco story in my mind. So a lot more complexity built around and probably less options on how you play out, how you connect to those incumbents through an ecosystem play. And definitely fill the gaps in here, Mike.
No, I think that's great. I think you have one thing I want to be clear on is I'd say largely everybody that's on here, but also all these categories are having some success, right? This is a growing area. The contact center as a whole, the technology as a core part of the business is growing and booming. So there's a success kind of all across the board. There's not a one size fits all for most customers, but you certainly see this disruption with the cloud challengers and sort of disrupting the initial cloud approach that was taken for the first, say, 10, 15 years of cloud contact center.
Yeah, and we almost broke this cloud challengers and even a couple more groups, but realistically, when you see Twilio Flex and Amazon, those are even newer to the game. And
yeah.
Developer platforms, built for developers and a lot more customization, still green in some of their meat and potato contact center feature sets, whereas maybe the Sarah Nova, Sharp, and TalkDesk of the world are pretty feature rich when it comes to contact center and omni-channel, maybe not built as much for the enterprise and or developer application.
Yeah. And I think one interesting thing to highlight from the challenger side, Genesis Pure Cloud, we put in there, Genesis Pure Cloud, of course, is microservices, is built in AWS. And obviously Genesis, it was built completely separate, right, from Genesis's prem and on legacy, if you will, products. And so you see this interesting mix of how these different, the legacy on-prem suppliers are coming to market, right? Some of them are taking what they've built on-prem, putting it into data centers or sometimes even deconstructing it, rebuilding the software as microservices and putting it in public cloud, or sometimes they're starting from scratch. So there's a wide range. And so certainly there's a lot of bleed over between one category and another. Genesis is a really good example of that.
And yeah, you could actually throw Genesis in the cloud incumbent too. Some of their cloud 1.0, the interactive intelligence acquisition, they were putting some of their prem-based products in the cloud, and the kind of the single instance, multi-instance type platform. So Genesis can really fill those top three ovals. Absolutely,
yeah, exactly. And I think if we did this probably 2 years ago, we would stop at those three. Well, that's what I think is interesting about this space. I think if you look at the fourth one, CRM and ticketing, we've always talked about CRM. We've always talked about data as a core part of the contact center, right? Those things go hand in hand for a really good customer experience and be able to have the contact center really, I think, achieve its potential. Data and CRM is a core piece of that. But what's been interesting and where this fits into the contact center technology picture now is you really have the CRM and ticketing systems really sort of becoming the contact center, right? Salesforce recently, right, at Dreamforce announced their ability to add voice natively into Salesforce as a channel. I mean, that's a huge change because they've always had the ability to do chat and email, right, and case management. Obviously, they're the CRM already, but suddenly now that voice component was kind of lacking, and now they're bringing that in. You've already had that.
They're turning up SMS, I believe.
Turning up SMS, right? Zendesk has already been the same thing, right? Started out as kind of ticketing CRM, is growing from there, and now they've added voice. They already had chat, they already had email and cases, web portal. Now they've added voice recently too. And what I think is interesting and why is there success with all of these players? Why is there enough room in them? Well, it's a big market, but also some customers and some businesses require different things. I would say largely the cloud challengers bring a stronger, and this is a general statement, not true for every specific one, but generally bring a really stronger omni-channel capability than maybe the cloud incumbents do, where they're more voice-centric initially, and same thing for the legacy on-prem. Well, CRM and ticketing, as you can imagine, since their background is that, they bring a really strong, largely omni-channel. Of course, they have the CRM piece, and now they're starting to bring the voice and sort of starting to step into the world of the full-on contact center. And those lines are really blurred now, which I think is exciting. I think it's really early phases, so how it shakes out will be sort of is TBD, right? But I think this is an interesting thing. I put a lot of the CRM ticketing players, major players on there that maybe haven't ventured into this, like a Microsoft or an SAP, but will they? I think they will, right? I think at some point in time,
They have to.
I think they have to, exactly. I think they follow the lead of Salesforce, right, and figure out where this world, this new world of customer experience, customer engagement is not just contact center off by itself, but it's the contact center and the CRM joining forces.
I'm really bullish on this part of it. I think that, you take Inflow, for example, our whole business is built on Salesforce, right? But then we have our contact center that integrates with Salesforce to make dynamic routing decisions and interactions to our contact center, our cloud contact center platform, which is Genesis, pure cloud. But if the data is in Salesforce, all the analytics are built into Salesforce or just the CRM. 3 of the 4, or 3 of the 5, or 4 of the 6 channels are already there. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Why would you have one application integrating to the other? I'm sure there's reasons, but I'm going out on a limb here to say that everybody should be watching that blue oval there. That's going to be a real powerful addition to I say contact center, but we're going to talk about this in our next series. It's not even contact center anymore, really. It's customer engagement platforms, and how do you engage with those platforms? And omni-channel and data and intelligence are all key components of that. So.
Yep. Well, I think we'll wrap it there because I think that's a good overview of where we see the contact center technology landscape right now. And like Travis said, this is really kind of a good segue into the next conversation around this is broader than just contact center. It's, in fact, what it gets called over time is anybody's guess, but contact center seems pretty limiting to what we're actually describing now when you talk about the customer engagement. It's not just happening through contact center, it's happening through a lot of different systems, and the technology stack has grown quite a bit. So we'll talk about that next time, but thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you got something out of this, learning about 2019 state of the contact center technology space. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.